I can see why people get this question wrong, but honestly, I think it's one of the easiest ones in this hard module. Let's take a look. Though not closely related, the hedgehog tenrecs of Madagascar share basic blank true hedgehogs. So they share something, but they're not closely related, right? So there's kind of a tension there. They're not related, and yet they have something in common, including protective spines, pointed snouts, and small body size, traits the two groups of mammals independently developed in response to equivalent roles in their respective habitats. So there's this tension in this passage between like, they're not related, and yet they're also kind of the same, but not really. But don't let this bother you, right? Like we're trying to say they share basic characteristics of or with true hedgehogs. Now that's not a choice, but similarities is even more specific of saying that like they share something that is similar. Like, yeah, they both have protective spines, pointed snouts, and a small body size. So to me, that's an easy question. But maybe this is one that would be very difficult for people who are not native English speakers, because these other words kind of make a little bit of sense in there, right? So let's just go through them. These tenrecs share basic examples of true hedgehogs, right? Like you could be like, oh, they share like characteristics, like I said before, with the hedgehogs. So what are some examples of those characteristics? The spines, the snouts, and the size, right? Like I could see people fitting that in there, but that it doesn't fit in the blank, right? To say that they share basic examples of hedgehogs, like an example of a hedgehog would be a specific hedgehog species, but they're saying these are different species. So they can't share the same species if they're different species. So it just doesn't fit in the blank, right? It's related to some of these ideas in the passage, but it's not a good fit in the blank. Concerns about, now concern is a word that generally is negative, but we could also just kind of think of it as like something concerns something else that means that it is like involved with. So I guess that kind of fits, but I think this one you'd probably throw away because of that negative connotation. They share basic concerns about true hedgehogs. That makes it sound like the tenrecs are like worried about the hedgehogs and are like, oh, those hedgehogs are in trouble. But like, no, we're not even talking about what the tenrecs think. They're little animals. C also feels like something someone could pick if they didn't have that kind of like comfort with the English language. They share basic indications of true hedgehogs. This is kind of like the word examples. What are the indications that they look like hedgehogs? The protective spines, the pointed snouts, the small body size, right? I could see that fitting as well, but just because you have protective spines does not make you a hedgehog, right? Sea urchins have protective spines, right? So the spines are not an indication that something is a hedgehog. There's lots of qualities that really make it a hedgehog and not a sea urchin, right? So it just doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense in that blank. It's hard to say exactly why, but this gets to something that we see on some questions that native English speakers might not even realize, the idea of usage, right? That words can have very similar definitions. They might overlap in certain circumstances, but they won't overlap in the circumstance we're given here. So, you know, A, C, and D especially, I think there's a lot of overlap there, but there's only one right answer. And it may be just like my feeling and comfort of, you know, with the English language that makes me so certain that it's D. But I am curious, if someone is not a native English speaker, was this question hard for you? Because I think it's very, very easy, especially compared to the ones that were earlier in this module. But I do think that there's this intentional usage piece here that is just always going to be harder for people who are not native English speakers, because you just don't have as much experience with the language, and usage is something that you build with experience. So just keep trying, keep watching my lessons, and hopefully it'll get easier with time.